Hey folks, Brian Bledsoe again with a long range forecast information here for Red Summit Rangeland Insurance. Not a whole lot of change in what we've been dealing with over the past several weeks and even the past several months or so. But I want to give you an April update here and show you what we've been over the past 30 days across the West. And it's obviously been terrible in most locations. Very few areas in the Western United States have been at or above average in terms of moisture. We got a little bit up here over far northwest Washington, some pockets here across the Front Range of Colorado, even southeast Utah, but the majority of Utah has been pretty much shut out because we haven't had any type of subtropical jet stream moving in, impacting California with storms from the southwest. They've all been diving down from the northwest, and that is definitely not a favorable trajectory for a storm track to benefit us. Now, in terms of sea surface temperature anomalies, we've got all this blue still here across the Central Pacific Ocean. That is the La Nina episode that had a pretty good resurgence during the month of March. We also have this blue shading here from the Gulf of Alaska down the west coast of the United States and off the Baja. That is also contributing to what we're dealing with in terms of the dryness here across the Western United States. And with these two things locked in, it's going to make it very tough to change the overall weather pattern this late in the season, especially for California, to really benefit them with some significant moisture around here. So the March miracle wasn't going to happen. We talked about how that wasn't going to happen, and anything that could be amazing in April, well, I think that's going to be pretty tough to make happen as well. Here's the sea surface temperature anomaly animation that it runs from back in late December, continues through January, February, and March. And you can see there in the last image, a pretty good resurgence there across the Central Pacific in terms of that blue shading. That's when the La Nina really kind of came back on during the month of March. And also, this is the top-down look up here at the top of the sea, at the surface of the ocean. Then you go down here to about 200 meters or so. You see that cold pool again that's been emerging after this red shading kind of wiped it off. And then that went by the wayside, and we reinvigorated the La Nina right there. That's what's been responsible for the resurgence. And it's tough to break down when you've got that type of cold pool at that depth, down to about 150 or 200 meters. So that kind of tweaked the modeling a little bit with the forecast. And you can see the probabilities over here on the left side, where we are firmly in La Nina right now. You see those blue spikes kind of come down, but they don't go away. And that's because a lot of the computer model information has been hinting at La Nina weakening and then bouncing back during the back part of this year and into the next winter. That would obviously be a terrible thing for a lot of areas. The other thing that we've been seeing is you see these red bars down here during the latter part of the year. They were at a little higher level last time. They are shrinking. And I think that's because some of the models are indicating that the La Nina episode may not completely go away. That's a new development. I'll elaborate more on that here in just a little bit. But something that I want to focus on right now is the drought, obviously, across the West. Most of the West is in terrible shape, as I'd mentioned. Arizona, central Arizona, at least a little bit better. Northwest Montana, parts of the chimney of Idaho, and then up here in the parts of the Pacific Northwest are okay. California being in terrible shape, if not for that amazing December that we had. So we're in bad shape right now, and it's likely going to get a lot worse before it gets better. We have average to drier than average conditions here across most of the West, with the exception here of far northwest California and on up into the Pacific Northwest. This is over the next 15 days. We got a pretty big storm system coming in a couple of days that'll swing through the Pacific Northwest and then eventually emerge out here into the plains, and we'll probably end up giving the Western Dakotas, Eastern Montana, Eastern Wyoming a pretty healthy blizzard out of the deal. But the farther south you go, southeast Colorado, New Mexico, down into Texas, going to get shut out with that particular storm. And the next 35 days don't offer much hope either. You can see the weather and average conditions here along parts of the Rockies, but farther west you go, it is drier than average overall, especially across parts of California. That basically puts an end to the wet season, with December having done the best that it could, and then January, February, March, and even into April just simply not offering a whole lot. So that's why I said it's bad now, and it's going to go from bad to worse very quickly, especially when it starts getting warm, or warmer, I should say. If we break this down into the NMME model here, the longer range model, and I will qualify this by saying these models that are this long range, if it's dry now, that's built into where it starts. And it's tough for the model to see anything different at that time. But with the way the pattern is stacked, I don't have a whole lot of reason to argue with May being drier than average, where you're seeing the brown shaded areas right here. Does that break down for June? Well, let's look at that. it starts to, and the big reason is because you see down here in Mexico where it's green, that's where the monsoon is going to start to get going. But I don't have a whole lot of hope up here across the Pacific Northwest and the Northwest Rockies during the month of June, really giving us any relief. Now, most of Utah in the average category, I suppose, but again, we're really not talking about anything significant in the average or above average category until we get to July, when the monsoon really takes hold. That's what this green ribbon is, extending from parts of Colorado down through New Mexico, Arizona, and all the way down into Mexico. That would obviously benefit Utah and parts of the West with at least a better shot of seeing some moisture. The month of August, again, you can see where it's likely going to be drier than average there. The West doing a little bit better because of the monsoon that's fired up. And then if we go into September, it's much the same story. The white shaded areas tend to be average. That's the back part of the monsoon season. And if we have a robust monsoon season, it's probably going to linger a little bit into the month of September. The Euro seasonal model, I think, probably has an even better handle on the overall pattern. And we'll start with that and go to the May right here. You see the eastern half of the country, wet, essentially I-35, KC, Wichita, Oak City, Dallas, and eastward, wet. Farther west, generally average to quite a bit drier than average, depending on your location. Again, that is for the month of May. If we go to June, it's kind of the same story with this dry pocket here in the nation's midsection, but here's the monsoon, as I mentioned, coming out of Mexico up through Arizona, western New Mexico. That's where it's getting started during the month of June. Even into parts of southern Utah would actually offer a little bit of benefit. And then this goes into July. We're full-blown monsoon going on out here across parts of the West. That's something that I think the Euro seasonal model has a better handle on than the NMME model when it comes to this type of thing. So I'm betting more on that. And not only that for the month of July, but also continuing into the month of August. You can see where it's likely going to be wetter than average during the month of August. And we also could see that lingering into the month of September. Now, backing up here just a little bit, you know what's going on in the Eastern Corn Belt has been. It's been wetter than average for quite some time. But if we don't continue to see that pattern hold true, what we might have is a bunch of corn that does okay early in the year. And then here's June. We still have some pockets of wetter than average stuff here. But look what happens in the Corn Belt in July. Eastern Corn Belt, a little bit okay. August, it dries out. And then that dryness continues even into the month of September. So for interests that are in the Corn Belt, I think that's something that you have to pay close attention to, and certainly something that I'll be watching over the next several weeks and a couple of months to get a handle about what's going on there. Last model is the IRI model, which again is updated here in about 10 days. So I'm interested to see what it does. But you can see for May, June, July, where the bulk of the stoutest dry signal is located here across the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, lessening dry signal, Arizona, New Mexico. And I think that's because of the monsoon coming farther north. And then a little bit of tip toward drier than average stuff here across Utah. But again, the bulk of the dry signal is up here over parts of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, a little ribbon here across the plains, but not to the extent that it was, a little while ago in terms of what it was going to look like. So my thoughts on this is the La Nina delayed departure and the overall cold feel of the Pacific, or that negative PDO that I have been talking about for a long time, that will continue to cause some drought issues across the West. Now, that's right now. When we get toward the monsoon season, we might start to see some better stuff take place at that point. The longer the drought persists, the longer the drought will persist. It's a nasty positive feedback thing. The soil is dry. Drier soil heats up better than wet soil. That helps to stir up the wind, and you start this domino effect, this feedback that contributes to perpetuating the drought. So until that breaks, I don't see a whole lot of change in that. And then, as I said, this new piece of information, the model suggesting that possible triple dip La Nina, with La Nina weakening during the summer, but then coming back during the fall and winter. That's something that has me concerned, and definitely something that I'm watching. I will preface that by saying right now, this time of year, long-range model skill is not that great when it comes to forecasting La Nina or El Nino episodes. So I'm interested to see what May brings us, and I will definitely be updating you on my thoughts about that during the month of May. That's all I have for you guys for the month of April. If you have any questions, obviously hit me back up. Other than that, Hope you have a good next month, and I will catch you again in May.